Okay, hi everybody. We are now here and we are live. So what we are looking at here is the start to a peacock. So I have a lot of the color on. The most difficult part, of course, is going to be the tail. So that's what we're going to be looking at today. I'm going to be making some of the detailed eyes that go along the tail, and just kind of working on something that is small and separate and then adding it on to the tail afterwards. Something else really neat I can show you is this here. So I have some holographic stickers that came in. As you move them, you get kind of rainbowy colors. So that for me is really exciting. I've never had any of my work as a sticker before. And of course, the owl is my favorite piece. So that's really neat that it came in. Now we're going to look at starting felting. So I'll set you guys up so you can see what I'm doing. All right. So the first thing we're going to need to think about is, what does a peacock feather actually look like? And what colors are we going to need? So peacocks have a lot of blues and greens. So I have some beautiful blues available. And I have some really nice looking greens. These are dark greens. And then, of course, I have the really, really vibrant greens you would see. Also, like this one here is really vibrant. What else do I have here? I have all different colors, different colored blues, different greens. So it's pretty wide open on colors. I have just about everything I would need. So I guess the next part is to actually look at a peacock tail and think about the shape and the color. So let's get this kind of out of the way for right now. So what I'm doing here is I have a bunch of reference up on my computer. Again, I'm going to talk about this every single day. Reference is so incredibly important. How are you going to make something, especially if you're trying to make it look realistic, if you do not have reference? So let's see. The peacock feathers generally have a green on the outside, and it's kind of a little bit of maybe the darker green to start with. So I'm going to grab some of the darker green, and we're just going to be making smaller little eyes at first, just to see if we can. I have not made one of these before. So what I'm going to do is take this here, see if I can get any closer to what I'm working on. See if I can move this around so you guys can see a little bit better. Almost got you guys. Sorry, my surface here is uneven and doesn't really want to let me set up. Whoops. Ooh, okay, so that didn't work out very well. Maybe what I'll do is set you up right here. There we go. Okay, so there we go. Let's. This does not want to stay steady. There we go. Okay, that's much better. Yeah, so here we are. So we have the green here, and what we can do is start working on the eye. There, I think you guys can see pretty good there. Okay, so what I'm going to do is start tacking this down and using my needle to put it into the shape I'd like it to be. So those eyes have kind of a teardrop shape where it's a little bit thin at the top and thicker towards the bottom. So I'm actually kind of using the sponge or the felting surface here as a way to tack it down. So I'm just actually using my needle to poke it in so it stays in the shape I'm looking for. And then, let's see, we want this a little bit smaller because the peacock's tail is not very big, not the one I'm working on. So let's kind of move this in a little bit at a time to make it smaller. I don't know if you guys saw, but this morning I posted a little bit of the raw wool that I've been working with, which has been super neat. And then I think I'll be posting more about the actual farm later on, which was super fun. I'd love to go out and actually show you working with it today, but it is raining. It is raining again. I keep wanting to go out and start processing my wool, but every time I think I'm going to have some time to do it, it starts raining and I can't because I don't want it to get wet and mold while I'm kind of working on it. Like I don't have enough time to do it all at once. So if it gets wet, it will probably mold or get ruined or have, you know, moths find its way in there. So I just don't want to open it up until I'm ready. I'm going to have a nice long sunny day so I can get as much of it done as I can. Okay, so I now have the shape I was looking for. And Let's see, I'll tack it down one more time. Now let's see, what's the next color in the peacock eye? Let's see. So the next color seems to be kind of a yellowish green, or like depending on the peacock and what's going on. There's a couple of different colors, so why don't we go with a really, really vibrant green first? So it seems like there's a little bit of a circle around it. So I'm using my fingers to twist this just to kind of make a thin strip I can work with, just so that way I have a little bit more control on what I'm doing. So again, I'm using my needle to grab the fiber and put it in where I'd like. So I'm just going to tentatively go around at this point. I don't want to be poking in too far because I'm just trying to get that nice oval shape. And I don't want to put it too far in where I can't get it back out if I need to. Okay, so it looks like, yeah. And what I'll do is I will actually go around a couple of times once I have it placed where I want to, so that I can make the green line a little bit thicker and poke it through more so that we get some of the color coming through onto the back. There we go. So that worked out pretty good. So now I'm just going to poke it through quite a bit. Make sure it stays along the edge like I want it to. Okay, now that we have that in there in the shape, I'm going to peel it up and tack it back down again. And something you can see is kind of the light green poking through. Well, I'm actually going to use that and grab that and poke it back through again. And that just makes it a little bit stronger. It's going to mix the colors together. So some of the dark green will go through the light green. And it just gives me a little bit of variant of color. And it makes it more secure. I know that green is not going to fall off once someone is playing with or displaying this toy. It's not going to go anywhere. Okay, and we're going to flip her over again, and you can see that green came through a little bit. So again, this piece here is extra fluff, but I'm just going to poke through one more time just to, again, it tacks it down again, but also get some of that color through. Okay, so back to the reference photo. So the next color seems to be kind of an orangish or an orangish brown. I have some really vibrant orange. I have a little bit of a brownie orange. So something I could do is mix the two together. So maybe I'll grab a little bit of the brownie orange and see if I have a darker brown or a darker orange here, because I find if you mix the colors, what I'm hoping for is a little bit darker burnt umber kind of a look, maybe more like that one there. That looks a little bit closer to what I'm looking for. So I'm going to show you something that I do when I have almost the colors I want, but not quite. And this is kind of just a fun at-home trick you can do if you don't have all the professional materials. And what it is, hold on, I'm just cleaning it off here. Turn you up a little bit. Oop. Wow, my phone stand is not fantastic. There we go. Yeah, like I said, my phone stand here is not great. Ooh, not at all. Okay, there we go. So what I have is 2 dog hairbrushes. Whoops. There's still some fiber left in there. I'll just clean this out a little bit so I don't get blues and purples and whatnot in my mixture. So what I'm going to be doing is taking the oranges, just a little bit of this bright orange, and I'm putting it on. So a little bit of the dark orange and just a little bit of the brown. And what I'm going to do is I have it kind of pushed on like this. So it's all on my brush. And then the next thing I'm going to do, hold on, I'm just moving this down a little bit. Okay, so next thing I'm going to do is grab my large dog hairbrush. I wish I could get 2 of these. I could only find one small, one large. And I'm going to have them facing opposite directions, and I'm actually going to brush them together. So when I'm going this way, I'm kind of pulling the fibers through. When I come down, I'm grabbing them off again. So again, just a little bit of brushing. There we go. So I now have a color that is closer to the orange that I wanted to have for the eye of inside the peacock feathers. I know somebody just asked, it's Angela just asked or said she can't wait to see what we're going to be doing. But I thought what I'd do first that I'll show you. This is what we were working on yesterday. So I have more of the color on. And what I'll do is tomorrow I'll work again on some of the 3 we've already started. I want to get some of them finished before the end of the residency. So I won't start a new one until after some of these have some details and things on them. So the flamingo has been started and it is coming along well. And then today I'm working on this big boy. So I have kind of a base color and like a rough sort of start to the tail. It's not quite the right shape yet, but I'm going to be using some of the feathers to fake that shape. And then we have the head. I really like this blue color I found. It's kind of shiny, so I'm pretty happy with how this is turning out. And I did the same thing back here with mixing the color. I have some blues and some greens, and I've just been mixing it together to get more variety. And I find if you mix colors and don't have it too exact or too much of one tone, that it looks more realistic. Because of course in nature, things aren't just flat colors. There's different shades and textures and things like that. So I find if you do that, you can see here a little bit of different colors going on. And inside the tail is some of that pipe cleaner that we had used before, just to kind of keep the tail up. Eventually, I'm hoping that it will be kind of against the body like this. And of course, peacocks have another piece that comes out the back with their tail on it. So when I do get some of these eyes finished, I'll then be working more on the shape of the tail and everything else. So let's turn you back down to the eye here. There we go. So now that we have the orange that I made that I'm happy with, I can grab a little bit of that and poke that in. So let's see, I'm going to look back here at my reference of my peacock, and I actually don't need near that much. Okay, and I'm twisting it again just so I can control where it's going. And what I'll do is, like, I'm going to need to make quite a few of these. And again, because I'm looking at nature and the real bird, they won't all be the same size, they won't all be the same shape, not even all the same color. So there's a lot of variance with it. So I am going to probably make an army of these and then start attaching them onto the tail and looking at making it as good as I possibly can. You know, and I've said many times before, I'm not great with anatomy. I'm not fantastic with birds or animals. You know, what I really would love to do is sit down, maybe go to the Moncton Zoo and work on sketches, reference, learning more about the animals. I know one of my old art teachers used to say he started going to classes where they were dissecting animals, and he even gone to some medical classes where they were working on people, cadavers, so that he could learn more about the anatomy, and he was able to just kind of sit and watch and learn so much about the skeleton, the muscle structure, and everything else. So I've been watching some YouTube videos, looking at reference. I often look up animal anatomy on Google. My most favorite thing in the world is Google. So, all right, so we have that color down. And I think I'm going to wait to flip it until after I put the next color down, just to make it a little bit easier, because this is getting a little small here. And the next color is a very brilliant blue, which I have a couple of different blues here that I really like. So on the camera, they kind of look like blue-green, but it's actually here, it's a really, really bright blue. I think I'm going to choose this one. You can actually see when I pull it out, it's this strip. And that's because it's already started to felt on itself. I keep my things in plastic bags, and often while they're in the bags, they're rubbing together. And when they rub together, and I'm moving them around a lot, they start to felt on themselves. Luckily, I can still tear it apart quite easily. It hasn't felted too much. But the more you move it around, the more you agitate it, the more it's going to kind of connect to itself. And, you know, I want to keep my felt usable. Part of that is I should stop carrying it around in my purse and felting when I'm out and about and bored, or, you know, on my lunch break, whatever else. So I'm going to grab this, and seeing as it takes up kind of most of the center of the eye, what I can do is start rolling it around. Well, hi, Janice. Thank you for saying you love this. This is awesome. I'm glad you're here to watch. Next time I come for a visit, I should teach you how to do this because it'd be really fun. I'm sure I'll be down for the Christmas party. Yeah, so now again, I'm using the tip of my needle, wrapping it around and pushing through, and still trying to get a little bit of that eye drop shape or teardrop shape, I guess. Yeah, so there we go. And I will probably have to poke this a little bit more because it's already sitting on top of a layer. So again, just poke, poke, poke. Here we go. And then the last thing is on these, there tends to be a really dark blue spot down just below this bright blue one and kind of going off onto the orange. So what I'm going to do is look in my crazy big pile of felt and see if I have a dark blue handy. This one's nice. It's almost a purpley dark blue, but I think that might be the one I like. I have a couple of other blues in here. I'm just pulling out and throwing them all onto my desk so I can see them and kind of get a good feel for what I have. Again, I have a mass amount of colors here. I've kind of been hoarding different colors of felt. I have it all kind of separated out into blues, greens, reds, yellows. So I have one basket that's all the hot colors, one that's all the cool colors, some that's for natural colors. Okay, I think I like this deep blue the best. And again, this is going to be a much, much smaller piece. So I'm just going to tear it apart until I get just a little bit, just a hint of it. Still a little bit much. There we go. And all these little pieces I'm pulling off, I'll use later for the other eyes. Because again, I'm going to have to make, I don't know, a lot. So Janice asked, what does it cost to buy the wool? It kind of depends. I actually went out to a farm earlier this week and was able to get, I don't know, something like 20 different fleece. So a fleece is the full wool off of the sheep, and you usually get around 5 pounds per sheep, and it actually costs me $4 a pound, like a fleece. But it's not washed, it's full of sticks, it's full of dirt, and so that is a very, very good price for it. Where I have, if I buy it in store, it depends on the store. So when I buy it from the school store, you can get just the plain white for about $15 a bag. Or I know if I go to Good Vibrations in St. John, they have it where you're buying by the weight. So you can actually go in with like a little grab bag, fill your bag up, and then weigh it. And that stuff's all beautiful. Like it's like these here, that's where I got these here, and they've already been dyed, and they're really, really long fibers, which people like to work with is the long fibers. You know, it's really good stuff. So that costs me probably about $5 for a little bag, and it's weighed out in ounces. And then I've actually started going to, there's a mill just outside of Fredericton towards Hervey, I think. And that is Briggs & Little. And I started going out there, and they actually do bags of the wool for $18 for a bag, which is 1 pound. and it's been clean, it's been carded, it's ready to dye. So I still get to choose my colors. And that is probably the best deal I've seen so far. So that's pretty good for price point. The other thing is I've started seeing the wool at the dollar store. They have little felt kits at some of the dollar stores. I know the Great Canadian Dollar Store often has really good stuff. The other thing is, when I started, I didn't have a lot of access to wool, and I really love working with it, and it goes beautifully. But it's rather expensive for a student to start on, and I was just learning. So I would buy this beautiful wool, but I did not want to use it because I'm like, no, I'll ruin it. I don't know what I'm doing. I need to practice, but I don't want to practice on my good stuff. So I will show you what I used instead. Give me 1 second. Here we go. Okay, so trying not to have this fall over here. So this, give me 1 second. Okay, so this here is from the dollar store. It's called Chunky Wool. So it comes kind of in a big wound, and it's acrylic with 10% wool, but it pulls apart just like felt. So it does work. This is what I do all my practice on. I actually made this guy here. So he is completely made out of this synthetic stuff, this cheap stuff. So this whole bag cost me $4, and it comes in white, black, gray, red, purple, and a couple of other colors just at your local regular old dollar store. And so I was able to make this guy here. The camera is over here. Yeah, so I was able to make this owl here just out of the dollar store material. This is one of the first snowy owls I made. So I keep him because he's kind of like my little friend, my first try. And I was able to do these little feathers. I'm looking for dye that works on synthetic material. So like I use acid dyes, and it doesn't hold on in the synthetic wool. So my the 10% will dye, so you'll get a very light pastel-y color. But I want to go out and get some really like dark colors. So my plan is to go get some eye dye, or there's a couple of different brands of dye that work on synthetics. So that's next on my list to go pick up, so I can start experimenting with that, so that I can use this to create more colors. I started with the snowy owls because I had white and black. And something else you can see here is the nose. It's actually polymer clay, so I'm going to talk about that in a couple of minutes. After we finish this one eye, I'm going to show you how to make a beak out of this clay, and kind of what it is and what it looks like. So that's going to be right after we finish what we're working on right here. So I'm going to turn you back down to what we're working on. And so now I'm just kind of poking a lot. Sorry, I moved something here, so it's being difficult. It's funny how as soon as you move something, it's just like, well, I don't want to work for you anymore. Okay, good enough. So as I poke down, other spots tend to pop up. And that's just spots that haven't really been felted in. If you look, I'm actually pulling wool out of my block here. I was working with the peacock on this earlier, so I actually have to pull all this extra wool out because, like, look how much I have on here. And those colors will mix into whatever I'm working on. It'll grab onto this as well. So usually with things like this, I like to poke until they're somewhat hard. And if I need to, like if the colors mix together too much, I'll come back after and put more color back on. Something I can do to make it look more realistic, because we kind of have the eye I was talking about before, but in a lot of the feathers, they kind of have like fluffy bits that are coming off the sides a bit, and that's more of that really, really kind of bright green color. So I'm going to grab a little bit of the light green, and I'm just tearing it down to about the size I want, putting it across the back. And then there was also kind of a like an emerald green. So I have some emerald, and I'll just take a little bit of this one and kind of sprinkle it across as well. Just a little bit. And now I'm just holding on either side of my feather and poking down into it. But I'm not poking what's over here on the sides, just what's in the center. And when I flip it back over, I can take off the little bit of extras that's hanging out. But you can see there's kind of this fluffy bit now hanging off, and I'm going to tear, if it's really, really long, I'm just going to tear it off. But you can see we have now kind of these fluffy bits hanging out the side. And again, I'm just going to poke through to get all that came through back down into there we go. So if you see now, it's a little bit more feather-like with all the kind of parts hanging off. And when I put it onto the tail, it's going to look more like that classic peacock feather that we're used to seeing. So I'm going to have to make, I don't know, like 30 of these here. So quite a few in order to cover my entire peacock tail. So I'm going to move this out of the way just for a little bit and grab a pair of pliers, some wire, and some clay. So this here is Super Sculpey. This is almost always what I use. I'm pretty sure this is actually an older box that I've thrown all my newer stuff into. I think this box, what it came with was gray, not the peach color, but I prefer the peach color. I find it's easier to work with, like when I'm painting it and stuff. So I'm just going to put that in my hand and try to start warming it up. I'm going to grab a little bit of extra and just, it kind of just breaks off. If you see right now, it's really crumbly. But as it warms up, it becomes more malleable, kind of like Play-Doh or clay, you know, anything like that. I'll move you down a little bit again. And the next thing I'm going to need is some wire. So again, I'm going to turn back to my computer, and I'm just kind of rolling this around in my hand while I'm doing that. And I'm looking back over at the computer and kind of looking at what does a peacock's nose look like, or its beak. They kind of have a short, pointy beak. It reminds me of, like, I don't know, like a regular songbird that you see around. It's not like hooked at all like a crow, or not quite a turkey, but just kind of your classic pointy beak. So I'm molding this with my hands. I'm going to grab my peacock that I've started and bring him down and kind of look at the size of his head. So I'm going to want this wire to go in quite a bit so that I can work on it and make sure that it stays inside of my bird here. And then I'm going to snip and then just check. If you look, I don't have a lot of color here on the end of the nose, and that's because I wanted to add the beak first. So I kind of push the wire in and see how much I can get in before it gets caught on either the wire that's already inside. Yeah, so not bad. And what I'll do is eventually I'll actually glue the wire in. I have some super glue. So that's a little bit longer than it needs to be. So I am going to snip off, let's say, this much so that only a piece is poking out. All right, so I pull it back out. I'll put the peacock aside, put the wire down, and I'm really going to start kneading this clay. I want it to be nice and soft. And kind of the neat thing about this clay is it's an oven baked clay. So I can sculpt whatever I would like a regular Play-Doh or something with this clay. And then I put it in the oven and bake it. And once it's baked, it actually hardens into like, kind of feels like a plastic or a regular oven baked clay piece. So you can actually make like jewelry or little trinkets or anything you can kind of think of. If you're pretty good at sculpting, you can use this clay for it. I had showed the other day this here. This is my felted dandelion. So the green part here and the stem and the leaves and the center part, let's see if I can get that to focus a little bit better. Not really. So these parts here are the oven baked clay, where the white fluff is the kind of the felt. Yeah, it really just does not want to focus on that. But yeah, so this part here is all oven baked clay. So this here. But then I've painted it, and I have another larger one here that I'm working on. I'm still making the fluffy poof part, and that is next on the process. But this stuff here, it's just the wire I've been using inside the clay, baked. I think I baked it for 15 minutes or until it starts to darken a little bit, and then I pull her out. You don't want to bake it too long or it will become fragile, and it's more likely to break or crumble if you're playing with it too much. So I think I actually have some more videos on this channel or on my YouTube channel with kind of the oven baked clay stuff on it. So, all right, so I have, it's pretty malleable now. So what I'm going to want to do is start thinking about that shape of that beak. They have this kind of like triangle at the top, and then it's a little flat on the bottom and almost like a little bit hooked. So I'm gonna do as much of that as I can. Just with my fingers, and like I'm just using my hands and fingers to smooth and kind of get the shape that I want. It's looking a little bit big. Like if we had this nose here, it's kind of huge. So nope, we're gonna have to pull some off. Another cool tool that I have for this is I actually found a dental kit, and it makes really great sculpting tools, which was kind of a surprise for me. It has a lot of different shaped tools in there. Let's see if I can find one of them. They're all sitting over here somewhere. Oh, actually, they're over here. Okay. I just spilled all my coffee onto some felt here, so that's sad. Actually, I have some regular clay tools. That's for working with, say, if you're working with clay, you actually fire in a kiln. And I have no idea where I put those dental tools. I had a ton of them, and they worked incredibly well with this. Oh, here they are. Okay, I found them. I was right. They were about where I thought they were before. So I'm going to pull out all these tools just to kind of give you an idea of what they are and what I'm working with. All right, I think I have them all. Okay, so there's a couple of different things here. I have this orange thing. It's just one of those skewers you get from the dollar store. It's plastic, and I can kind of use it to shape a bit. Like if I needed to smooth something, it's not so rigid that it won't move at all, and I can kind of use it to smooth down what I'm doing. Or let's say I needed a line to put in for where the beak opens. I could do that. So I have that started. Of course, I have X-Acto knife. Those are good for just about everything. These are wood carving tools, so I also got these at the dollar store. And let's say like I needed to push in a little groove where that beak kind of opens up. So I've actually made a little groove here with this because it's kind of a horseshoe shaped, so I can use that. Or some of my favorites is I went to a yard sale and they had all these metal tools here, and these are kind of dental tools that I think I paid $4 for the kit, and they're fantastic. But I can get really tiny details with these. Like, let's say there's a nostril right here. I can use the other end to pat it down and smooth it. Yeah, so just depending on how big I want that nostril to be. And let's say I'm starting to get crumbs coming up from the clay. I can, again, use my tool to pat it back down. I can use my hand. The heat from my hand will have that go away. Or something else you can use, like if you have any like cleaning alcohol around, that works really well for cleaning off dust, hair, in my case, felt that might have gotten into the clay, and it smooths the surface down really well. So I would just use a little bit of that, the rubbing alcohol, to go over the surface of this, and that would smooth it out and clean it up really nicely. So I don't currently have any that's for clay use, I'm using mine for cleaning around the house just while this whole COVID thing is going on. Yeah, so you can kind of see, I don't know if you can see that very well. Again, my phone does not want to focus at all. Anyway, so this is a just like the clay that I can use, and after, let's say, I push my tools aside, I would take the metal wire and actually stick it inside the clay, and making sure not to come out the other side. Like, you could push too far and come out like that. If you do, don't worry, just take a little bit of the extra clay that you have, put it on, smooth it down, or use your fingers to smooth down the hole. And I'll actually like work on this beak quite a bit more after the live stream is over, which is coming up soon. We're at 2:52 and I am done again at 3 live streaming, and then I'll be posting just some update videos and or some pictures. So yeah, let's say that's the beak kind of there. I would then put this directly into the oven. Because the wire is metal, I can just bake it as is. Don't put this clay on anything you can't put in the oven. So you could put it on wood, glass, metal. Do not put it on plastic. Plastic will melt. So that would not do well in your oven. So anything that you're going to use the polymer clay with, make sure that you can put it in just with those materials first. And then, like, I wouldn't put this on the felt and put the felt in the oven. So have it on the metal piece first. And then I actually use super glue to glue this part on. Yeah, so that's working with the beak. Of course, you could do a felt beak quite easily. Like, if that's what you were interested in, you can. Here we go. We're back up, and look at me for a little bit. Laugh at all the coffee I spilt all over my felt, so I'll have to wash some of my wool later on. So in the past, depending on what I'm making, I have the feet here on this peacock, and they're just made out of the pipe cleaners like we've been using for just about everything else. They're not really accurate. I just have like 3 toes in the front and 1 in the back just to kind of give me the general shape. And we'll have like, we'll put the beak on probably later. Oh, yeah, so that's kind of the start. And we'll be looking at the details like those eyes. I'm putting a lot of those eyes on this afternoon, so I'll make a ton. Yeah, so that's kind of the start to this one here. If I was using the polymer clay, depending on the pieces, I could use the wire and the clay to make claws or the whole feet. Like, if I wanted the legs to be really stiff and rigid, I could just do clay legs. If I'm doing a different animal, like I could do teeth, or like if we did the puma today, I could do claws for the paws of the puma to make them look a little bit fierce. If the mouth was open, you could use the polymer clay to make the teeth. It's just about anything that you want to be hard, keep its shape, look shiny, because you can actually use clear nail polish. So if I pull my owl out here again, if you look at his nose, it is shiny. And what it was is I just used some acrylic paint and then some clear nail polish to get that shininess to it. So I can do that. Something else I did, because this is white colored wool, I painted his toenails. So let's widen his feet out a little bit. So, yeah, so if he was going to grab onto something, it looks like he has toenails or claws here, but I didn't actually want to sit there and felt that detail on. I was a little bit lazy, and I knew that the claws had to be a little bit harder. And instead of using the polymer clay to create those, I just used some acrylic dollar store paint. Again, I love the dollar store. It is probably my favorite place. I get way too many supplies from them, but I used the acrylic paint to paint the tips of his nails black, and then again just some clear nail polish to shine them up a little bit. So that's just some of the cheats to make something like this. So maybe on the last day what I'll do is I'll actually take out all of my cheaper supplies or inexpensive supplies or just things you can find locally from the dollar store, and my final creature will be completely made out of things you can find around town rather than needing the merino wool and things like that. Yeah, so for now, for today, we're coming up on 3. I'm going to keep working on this guy here, so continue working on our peacock, and that's what we'll be working on tomorrow as well. I want to finish the goat, the peacock, and our flamingo, who is over here. So again, he's looking very cute. We spent yesterday putting all the color on and just learning how to lay down color and how to tack that on so it stays on and doesn't go anywhere. So another thing, like this one here has a felted beak, where the peacock will have the clay beak. And then we have to look at eyes. So again, do we want to use a felt for the eyes, kind of like this one here? Do we want to use clay? Do we want to use maybe some of these gems would look really cool? So like I have these sparkly gems here. So we could use those. We could use those on the tail of the peacock, maybe get some bling on there, make it look really special. We could use it for eyes. It's pretty open, and that's where the mixed media of my work comes in. It's on the embellishments. You could even do like with this here, the peacock tail. I'm really excited about this because it's kind of a flat sheet. I can actually use some embroidery thread, beads, anything like that to embellish the tail and just kind of make it look really spectacular. So I think I probably will do that. I don't know if it's going to be like the shafts of the feathers. I don't know yet. I'm going to keep making the feather eyes and see what I can do and how I can make this look really special. Yeah, so that's it for the live stream for today. Come back tomorrow and we'll continue working on these two here. And I'll probably see if I can find some other techniques you might be interested in to show you something new. All right, thanks for being here. See you guys.